In 1999, New Mexico artist and entrepreneur Linda Henning had a life that most would envy.
I sold my clothing line in Europe, Australia, Canada.
She was tall, attractive, always dressed nice, expensive clothes, perfect hair, perfect makeup, nails, the whole thing.
But that would suddenly change when she met a 34-year-old man named Diazin Hassenkoft.
He would promise people that he had a magic elixir that would bring eternal youth to women.
And seemingly overnight, 45-year-old Linda Henning's picture-perfect life changed.
She changed so dramatic.
How dramatic the change in Linda's life had become.
Girly Chew was an alien queen, and I must defeat her.
On the evening of Friday, September 10, 1999, Albuquerque police knocked on the door of Linda Henning. They were looking for Linda's boyfriend, Diazin Hassenkoft.
Friday night, 2 patrol officers come by, and they said they want to look for Diazin, to talk to Diazin.
Earlier that day, Diazin's estranged wife, Girly Chew,
the employee every boss wants.
The Albuquerque Police Department learned that Girly Chew Hassenkoff had disappeared when she failed to show up for work, and her employer called and notified the department.
When police searched Girly's apartment, it was clear that something was wrong.
The first thing I noticed were 3 distinct bleached out stains in her carpet in the den in front of her couch.
It was obvious that there was a damp spot on the carpeting, as if someone had tried to clean up something.
There were also minute drops of blood on the carpet and sofa.
There were found these 7 spots of blood.
Police called in a forensics team to take samples for DNA testing. The samples were turned over to forensics.
And Girly said, if anything happens to me, it's Diazin who does it.
But Diazin was also missing.
There's no sign of him. Nobody knows where he's gone.
That evening, police showed up at the home of Diazin's girlfriend, Linda Henning. And Linda's answers to the detectives' questions only deepened the mystery of Girly's disappearance.
What drew Linda to Mr. Hassenkoft was their joint beliefs about aliens.
Linda Henning believes in a lot of things that I guess you could say normal people don't.
Diazin Hassenkoft,
Owner of the gym, said, you might want to meet this fella. He's got a lot of interesting ideas. And then he gave me Diazin's card.
Those interesting ideas were one of Linda's favorite subjects.
Since I was probably 19 years old, I've done a lot of research on and off about government conspiracies, about things the government's involved in and that the public doesn't know.
She was interested in the aliens and UFOs.
It seems to be sort of a slowly evolving interest, starting with simple things like watching the X-Files, wanting to discuss them at length with different people.
Linda made the first move.
She showed up at his front doorstep and said, hi, this is...
Point on where the government's headed. And Diazin Hassenkoff had already done a lot of investigation. So we kind of, like the meeting of the minds, He had a tremendous amount of information. I had a tremendous amount of information as well.
The couple hit it off immediately.
It was just an incredible rapport. We talked for probably about, 3 hours.
He had a lot to say about that, and so she was more kind of like interested, I think, at first in the information.
Within a week of their meeting, Linda's relationship with Diazin had become more than professional.
Once we met, we were like together. We were like any spare time, we were together.
Linda wasn't concerned that
named Girly Chew Hassenkoft. She was a girl from Malaysia.
I've never cared about the relationships that any man that was involved with me had. I don't care about her, because she's not involved with us.
Diazin had not told Linda much about his soon-to-be ex-wife.
He never discussed it. That would be like airing your personal laundry, and he just didn't do that.
He had told Linda that Girly worked as a teller in a local bank. Diazin's own work was less traditional.
He came to tell her that he was a doctor and helped with youth serum, anti-cancer shots, and Botox.
He was going to develop a company that was going to have some medical breakthroughs.
But the
can be delayed, and maybe every 6, 7, 8 months that would occur.
And according to Diazin, Girly had decided to look for greener pastures. In January of 1999, after 6 years of marriage, she moved out and filed for divorce.
She went her merry way, and they were separated for a year before I ever met him. So I'm not a homewrecker.
By 8 a.m. on the morning of September 10, 1999, Gurley Chu Hasenkoff's supervisor at the bank was already worried about her employee.
Around 8 o'clock, she already has employees coming up to her before she even gets to her desk saying, Gurley hasn't shown up.
It wasn't Lizer became even more worried when one of Gurley's close friends called the bank looking for her.
She says, we always talk every night. I always want to make sure that she's okay, and we talk before we go to bed. She never picked up the phone last night.
Gurley's boss decided to call 911.
Her boss is calling the police, trying to impress upon them that this is very serious, that she has met harm's way.
One of Gurley's coworkers went to Gurley's apartment to check on her.
He goes out to the place. There's no sign of Gurley Chu Hasenkoff.
While waiting for officers to arrive, Gurley's worried coworker convinced the apartment manager to check inside Gurley's apartment.
The door was locked, but the deadbolt wasn't left unlatched. Something wasn't right here.
A quick tour of the apartment didn't reveal much, except that Gurley was not there.
Nothing really seems out of order aside from a pillow slightly askew.
However, when police officers arrived, they immediately noticed something disturbing.
The first thing the police notice is a distinct odor of bleach. It was obvious that there was a damp spot on the carpeting, as if someone had tried to clean up something.
The officers called for backup.
I was the on-call primary homicide detective for that time period and was brought in to assist the initial responding officers.
Detective Fox got a search warrant.
The carpet that had been bleached, the whole carpet area was lifted and taken to the crime lab, the Albuquerque Police Department's crime lab.
Gurley's coworkers also gave detectives a suspect in Gurley's disappearance, her estranged husband, Diazin. If what they told police was true, Diazin had good reason to keep the details of his divorce from Linda Henning.
There were at least 2 reported episodes of domestic violence to the Albuquerque Police Department involving Gurley Chu Hasenkoff and Diazin Hasenkoff.
According to her coworkers, Gurley had been a victim of domestic abuse. She had finally reached a breaking point.
She actually moved to a location not known to Diazin because she feared for her life.
Had the audacity to say, I deserve some of our stuff. This seems to be a moment that really triggers Hasenkoff's rage. He vows that she won't see a single dime.
And Diazin demonstrated just how seriously he took that vow.
Hasenkoff is calling her work. Hasenkoff is telling her on the telephone that you'll die and your body will never be found.
Diazin Hasenkoff was our initial suspect. He had a violent marital relationship with Gurley.
That afternoon, detectives tried to locate Diazin for questioning. They discovered that he had recently moved, very recently.
We found that Diazin had hired a moving company and left the state in the locate that she may have been physically injured and is possibly bleeding.
Detectives began checking into Diazin's background. The more they found out, the more convinced they became that he was behind Gurley's disappearance.
In checking his background, you find that Diazin Hasenkoff wasn't his real name. It was Armand Chavez.
His name wasn't the only thing he had fabricated.
Hasenkoff was not a doctor. Hasenkoff was absolutely 100% a fraud.
And his so-called youth serum?
He would promise people that he had a magic elixir that would bring eternal youth to women. And there were women that would pay several $100s for this injection.
Background. Detectives learned he was involved with Linda Henning. And as it turned out, Linda and Gurley weren't the only women in Diazin's life.
He was simultaneously engaged to a number of women, many of whom never met him, only knew him on the internet.
Apparently, in January of 1999, Gurley had discovered the truth about Diazin's extramarital activities.
Her world is actually crumbling before her over time. At first, it's very slow to come down, but then it comes down real fast. Ultimately, after these domestic violence episodes, Gurley realizes that she has to separate herself from her abuser.
Gurley had moved out and filed for divorce. When detectives told her friend, Linda Henning.
Linda Henning's name came up early on in the investigation as being a friend of Diazin Hasenkoff's and a romantic interest.
which was why Linda found detectives at her door the same evening that Gurley had been reported missing.
They want to look for Dyson, so I did take them through the house. I brought them in.
Coming up, police discover that Linda's boyfriend has a secret life.
He believed that he himself was an alien.
But does Linda also have a secret?
A passerby located a wallet with Gurley Chu Hasenkopf's identification card close to Linda Henning's residence.
On the evening of Friday, September 10, 1999, 45-year-old businesswoman Linda Henning sat down with police officers in her Albuquerque, New Mexico townhouse. Her 34-year-old boyfriend, Dyson Hasenkopf, and his estranged wife, Gurley, had both disappeared. The officers were hoping Linda could help locate at least one of their missing persons.
I told them exactly what Dyson told me, which he told me that he was going to go to, I think, Colorado and maybe Dallas, something like that.
As for their other missing person, Dyson's wife, police were starting to fear the worst.
They believed that she was kidnapped and murdered.
All of the evidence.
These 3 stains had the smell of bleach, and they looked like they had been a blood-stained area that had been cleaned up by bleach.
Also alarming were items found near a desert highway. Just hours after Gurley had been reported missing, a highway worker had discovered a blood-covered tarp beside the road, about 100 miles southwest of Albuquerque. At first, he wasn't all that concerned.
Well, it is hunting season. Could be that a hunter had been using it.
Then he noticed a blood-stained blouse nearby. A thorough search of the area resulted in more gruesome discoveries.
There are panties. They're blood-stained. There's duct tape. It doesn't look good.
Did the bloody clothes belong to
Her clothing.
But even if the clothes belonged to Gurley Hasenkopf, that didn't mean the blood was hers. Only forensic tests could determine who the blood belonged to. That would take time the police were beginning to fear that Gurley didn't have. Interviews with Gurley's friends and co-workers revealed that the Hasenkopf's marriage had not ended as easily as Dyson had led his girlfriend Linda Henning to believe.
Gurley told her boss at the bank, "If I don't ever show up for work one morning, call the police right away."
And her boss had done just that. Now Gurley was missing, and police were trying to track down her estranged husband. It didn't look good that Dyson
found that Dyson had hired a moving company and left the state.
All the furniture was gone. Everything was gone.
That evening, just hours after Gurley was reported missing, police turned to Dyson's girlfriend, Linda Henning, in their attempt to locate him.
Friday night, 2 patrol officers come by, and I allowed them to come in. I didn't say, "Do you have search warrants?" I cooperated with the police 100%.
The officers left Linda's house with no clues to Dyson's whereabouts. 2 days later, on September 12th, Dyson Hasenkopf was still unaccounted for. That afternoon, police showed up again at Linda's home. This time, new evidence had led them almost to her doorstep.
Identification card within it, which was within about a half-mile radius of Linda Henning's residence.
Did the wallet mean Linda had been involved in Gurley's disappearance? It certainly had made her a person of interest to police. But when they questioned Linda, she told detectives she had no reason to harm her boyfriend's ex-wife.
I didn't have any negative feelings about Gurley. I didn't know anything.
Detective Mike Fox asked Linda to come down to the station to give a full statement.
They wanted to debrief me, and I agreed to it.
When Linda sat down with detectives in the Albuquerque police interrogation room, they began by asking what she knew about Dyson.
Medical doctor.
What's his expertise in the field? What did he tell you his field of medicine was?
He said that his field of medicine, he had been a surgeon at one time, cardiothoracic surgeon.
Linda told the detectives that Dyson's moving the same day as Gurley went missing was just a coincidence. She said she had known that Dyson planned to move out of state from the start of their relationship.
At what point did he tell you he was moving or leaving the state?
Oh, he had told me that the 1st of August. He said that he was going to leave. And he said that it was even funny that I had even stopped by and seen him because he should have been out by like July.
And he had a house that was being built.
However, Linda also claimed she had no idea where Dyson was at the moment.
He just said that he was going to Dallas And I told this to the police officer on Friday, and the police officer corrected me, and I said, no, I don't think so. And he told me Dallas. Went to Dallas, and then he said that he was going to go to Colorado.
When asked about Diazin's relationship with his ex-wife, Linda said Diazin had not told her much, nor had she asked.
He told me, this is exactly what he told me. He said, well, they lived separate lives. He said they lived as man and wife for about 30 days, and she moved out of his bedroom, and they lived separately.
Together, they'll be together.
The detectives then tried to hone in on the exact nature of Linda's relationship with Diazin.
What was your relationship with him?
Just like caretaker.
Kind of a caretaker, just somebody kind of looking out after.
Yeah.
And it was this insistence that her relationship with Diazin was platonic that ultimately would bring the investigation into Gurley Hasenkopf's disappearance back to Linda.
In following up Linda's statements, we're able to find out that she was lying to us and that she did have a romantic relationship with Diazin. At that point, she moved from being a person of interest to a suspect.
Talking to Linda's friends and acquaintances revealed the
Hasenkopf told people was when they had sexual relations, they would actually become cats.
Friends said that Diazin had told Linda that he had a secret life. However, it was not his history as a con artist that he had divulged.
He believed that he himself was an alien. At least that's what he wanted you to believe. He told some people he was from the Giga Planet and he was 10 or 50,000 years old. Henning, I think, believed him.
She also believed that he was able to morph into different reptiles. I remember her believing that government officials, the president and world leaders were also aliens from another planet.
Linda Henning had a propensity to believe, or certainly fascinated and intrigued by the unexplained phenomena: Black Hawk helicopters, cattle mutilations, UFOs, aliens. It seems that once Hasenkopf is introduced to her life, that these propensities are accelerated to becoming firm beliefs.
Coming up, the search for Gurley heats up.
They brought in psychics, they brought in dogs, they brought in machines that tell where, bones and stuff are.
And authorities come up with a shocking theory about Gurley's last moments.
Linda apparently was an alien queen that had been sent here.
By September 16, 1999, 36-year-old Albuquerque bank teller Gurley Chu Hasenkopf had been missing for 6 days.
We had done a painstaking research into anything that would show that Gurley was still alive. Use of an ATM card, bus terminal, airplane, train, anything like that to leave Albuquerque.
Every avenue led to a dead end. Police concentrated their efforts on finding their lead suspect. Gurley's estranged grilled Diazin's girlfriend, Linda Henning, in an effort to discover his whereabouts.
I cooperated with the police. I was the only one that gave a police interview.
If Linda had hoped that would be the end of it, she was in for a surprise. On September 16th, detectives returned to request a DNA sample. With 2 missing persons, police were taking nothing for granted.
I immediately offered what they call body collections. I have no problem with that.
Within a week, one of the missing persons was found. Detectives tracked Diazin Hasenkopf to Charleston, South Carolina.
Diazin was located in South Carolina through moving records.
He was with another woman who had believed that they were
no body and were still awaiting the results of forensic tests on the crime scene. Without more, they couldn't hold Diazin. Then, he gave them the break they needed. He made a phone call to one of his former neighbors back in Albuquerque.
He calls this neighbor across the street, and she perceives him to be threatening for having spoken with police. The FBI moves in. Hasenkopf is arrested for making threats across state lines.
On the morning of September 22nd, while Diazin was being transported back to New Mexico, Linda Henning was being escorted to the witness box in an Albuquerque courtroom. She had been subpoenaed to testify before a special grand,
basically as a witness to the case.
Linda told the grand jury that Diazin had been with her the night before Gurley had been reported missing. Under oath, Linda admitted that she and Diazin had more than a platonic relationship.
So your testimony today is that you went to bed at about 12:30 and you were in bed with him awake, and he was there with you for several hours.
Yes, he was at my home the whole evening.
Okay.
Now, I did not tell Detective Fox that I had sex with him. I didn't tell him that.
She told the grand jurors that she had known that Diazin was moving to South Carolina with another woman, which raised a big question for one of the grand jurors.
As a woman, I having sex with him knowing that he was leaving the next day to go to South Carolina to another woman and not being emotionally upset by that. Well, yeah, I was.
I confronted him with it, but I couldn't say anything. I mean, he had, if he was involved with somebody between the time that Gurley left and everything, well, then he's involved.
Linda told the grand jurors that Diazin had let her know he was in Charleston, but not until the day after her interview with police.
So Diazin called me, and I said, "You've got to call Detective Mike Fox. You've got to call him. You've been on the news."
However, Linda said she had not asked about his ex-wife's whereabouts, either then or at any other point too.
Why would I be jealous of this lady? I didn't know her.
Linda's 12 hours of testimony didn't result in an indictment of Diazin, nor did it get authorities any closer to discovering what had happened to Gurley Chu Hassenkoft. Detectives decided to try a different approach. They conducted a thorough search of Linda and Diazin's homes. At Linda's house, they found a Japanese ninja sword hidden in the attic. Receipts showed that it had been purchased by Diazin on the day of Gurley's disappearance. Linda told police that Diazin had given her the sword as a gift.
He says, you should take offense to that.
She also said that the sword had been in plain sight the first time officers had been to her house. She claimed she had only hidden it because she was concerned that police would take the only gift that Diazin had given her.
The cops took my house, turned it upside down, stole things from me. Every single thing related to UFOs, ETs, everything. Every single thing. They cleaned me out.
Detectives turned the sword over for forensic testing. They also uncovered evidence that Linda had lied to the grand jury when she claimed she had never met Gurley. Bank records showed that Linda had banked at the branch where Gurley worked. In fact, on at least one occasion, Gurley had been Linda's teller.
Linda had gone to the bank and introduced...
Had I had time to think about it, I'd say, oh yeah, at the bank. But I didn't. I was being threatened. They screamed at me. They threatened me. I was there for 12 hours with one break.
On October 29th, police swore out an arrest warrant for Linda.
They brought perjury charges against me. I had no idea what it was about.
She had been lying to the grand jury.
Albuquerque authorities now had Linda and Diazin in custody, but they were no closer to solving the mystery of Gurley Chu Hassenkoft's disappearance. By mid-October, she had been missing for over a month. But if Gurley was dead, where was her body?
They brought in dogs, they brought in machines that tell where bones and stuff are. They did everything. They brought in psychics.
There were search parties out near where the bloody clothes were found. There were search parties everywhere, and they never found Gurley's body.
Albuquerque police and prosecutors were convinced that Gurley Chu Hassenkoft had been murdered. But the unsuccessful searches meant they would have to rely on a different body of evidence to get a conviction.
This was one of the most expensive cases in the state of New Mexico. The prosecution spent a lot of money.
Interesting, but ultimately inconclusive.
Investigators determined that there was blood on it, but it's been compromised and they can't lift good DNA off it.
DNA tests on the bloody clothes found by the highway proved that they had belonged to Gurley.
The panties belong to Gurley Chu Hassenkoft. The blouse belongs to Gurley Chu Hassenkoft. The hair came from Gurley Chu Hassenkoft.
There was also saliva on the shoulder of the blouse that did not come from Gurley.
In inspecting Gurley's bloody blouse, we found that Diazin's saliva had been left behind on that blouse.
You had the blood of Gurley Chu Hassenkoft mixed with the saliva of Diazin Hassenkoft.
Also revealed two sets of DNA. One belonged to Gurley.
Criminalistics detectives were able to find very small blood particles from Gurley Chu Hassenkoft in front of the couch area.
If investigators were expecting the other DNA to be Diazin Hassenkoft's, they were in for a shock. The other DNA belonged to Linda Henning.
When the crime lab advised me that they had come up with Linda Henning's blood on Gurley Hassenkoff's carpet and on Gurley Hassenkoff's couch, we knew for certain she was involved in the murder.
On November 17th, grand jurors heard all the evidence against Diazon Hassenkoff and Linda Henning, against his estranged wife. The grand jury returned an indictment against both for the first-degree murder and kidnapping of Gurley Chu Hassenkoff. Coming up, Linda's trial makes sensational headlines.
There were all kinds of crazy things. Samurai swords, alien queen, reptilian creatures. It was hard to keep it all straight.
And Linda's attorneys gamble on the testimony of a con man. In Albuquerque, New Mexico, to stand trial for the 1999 murder of her lover's estranged wife, Gurley Chu Hassenkoff. From the beginning, it was a historic case.
Linda was the first woman in New Mexico history since statehood that would have faced the death penalty.
It was also a headline grabber.
I think the media liked the idea of aliens, and I think the media liked the idea of the fact that there was a body that could not be found.
There were all kinds of crazy things. Samurai swords, alien queens, reptilian creatures. It was hard to keep it all straight.
In January of 2002, the murder of his wife.
Diazon cut a plea deal where he pled, I believe, 96 years, pled guilty to the murder of Gurley Chu Hassenkoff.
I'm sure that he and his attorney sat down and said, you know what, even if you're innocent, we could take this to trial. Chances of them finding you guilty are very, very good with all the publicity and all the things that have been put into the newspapers.
Linda refused to even consider a similar deal.
I flat out said I won't take a plea bargain.
I started talking to her about what the police believe, and she said, that's silly. Told me that she had nothing to do with it.
Before prosecutors could get a jury to convict Linda, they needed to prove that Gurley had been murdered. While Diazon had pleaded guilty to murder as part of his plea, that could leave a big question mark in the minds of jurors.
We don't know what happened to her. She could be buried somewhere, she could be cut up in pieces somewhere, or she could be alive and well somewhere in Asia.
The DA began by outlining the evidence prosecutors had assembled against Linda.
Prosecutors relied a lot on forensic evidence. They relied a lot on the bloodstains that were found in Gurley's apartment.
And the prosecution's alleged motive?
There's no way I benefit. There's no way to tie it in. So they have to say, well, let's see, what's weird about Linda Henning? She's into UFOs. Well, we'll blame it all on that. And so they came up with this, and I had this long, drawn-out battle at her apartment, you know.
According to Linda, the prosecution's theory didn't hold up to scrutiny.
I battled her, and this was battled her to death. Then I would have had to come back to my own home. Somewhere, I am going to leave a trace. It's going to be DNA, it's going to be something. There was nothing in my car, nothing in my apartment, nothing on my clothes, nothing in my garage. There was nothing.
However, in their open, her defense attorneys conceded that some of the blood found in Gurley's apartment belonged to Linda. But they told the jury that there was an explanation that proved Linda was not a killer. She was a victim.
Our position was that hated and actually planted the blood in Gurley's apartment in order to frame Linda.
Mr. Hassenkoff claimed that he had some of her blood as part of some research that he was doing.
And the jury would get to hear Diazon's claims for themselves.
The whole case hinged on this impossible scenario. Will the trial jury believe that Diazon Hassenkoff placed the blood?
The defense team's job was made more difficult because their client disagreed with the defense strategy.
What made it difficult was her unwavering love for Diazon. She never even accepted the fact that he pled guilty to her murder, and she just thought that he was copping out.
Diazon's
convinced her attorney to attack the forensic evidence head on.
There's no integrity in the evidence. The custody tags show that the forensic detective processed the crime scene and he never turned him in to the lab to test until after the indictment came in.
According to Linda, her defense was handicapped because her attorney had never filed a motion to allow a defense expert to examine the forensic evidence.
He prepares the motion to challenge the state, asking the state to produce blood evidence from the crime scene, then he never files it.
The prosecution began by presenting evidence to back up their theory about how the crime was committed. First, there were the records.
Going into the bank, she became friendly with Gurley.
It's possible that this familiar face, a woman, doesn't seem to be a threat, shows up on Gurley's front doorstep, and the door is open.
Police do not believe that Gurley would have let Dyson in or any other stranger.
And once Linda was inside, prosecutors called forensic experts who testified about the blood found in the apartment.
But with Linda Henning, you actually have DNA evidence. You have her blood found in the victim's apartment.
They believe there was that altercation there and that Gurley was taken forcibly, probably alive, from her apartment to some undisclosed place.
Then, the bloody tarp and clothes found by the desert highway came
and driven to the area of Magdalena, New Mexico, where she was tortured, most likely by the use of the ninja sword and other items, and ultimately killed.
On October 15th, the defense began their case with their star witness, Dyson Hassenkoff.
He did acknowledge under testimony that he did plant Linda Henning's blood. It was to frame somebody else and not him.
Since Linda's defense had already painted Dyson as a con man and manipulator, putting him on the stand was a high-risk strategy. And with the death penalty still a possibility for Linda, the stakes couldn't have.
Kill this woman. You want to put the needle in her arm, go ahead. The only thing that's going to happen here is that you're going to kill my next victim.
He acted like a maniac. He acted like an idiot.
He sent me a note before he testified, and he said, please forgive me for everything I'm going to say, but your attorney has asked me to put on a grand performance.
Linda believed that Dyson had put on the grand performance in an effort to save her life. But while she believed his intentions were good, she was less sure about her attorney's intentions. Not only had they introduced their star witness as a liar and a con man, Dyson's testimony made it practically impossible.
No good SOB. This whole thing is a hoax. I mean, they put me in a no-win situation.
When the case went to the jury on October 18th, Linda did not like her chances for acquittal.
I knew I was going to be convicted. I had no defense.
But her attorneys were more confident.
There was no direct evidence that indicated that she murdered. It was all circumstantial evidence.
Coming up, the verdict, and Linda gets her chance to speak to the court.
He alleges I'm a cannibal, an alien queen, and a ninja.
On October 25, 2002, a Bernalillo County, New Mexico jury returned to the courtroom where 49-year-old Linda Henning awaited her fate. She was charged with first-degree murder and kidnapping and was facing the possibility of the death penalty if found guilty.
We find the defendant, Linda Henning, guilty of first-degree murder, felony murder, as charged in the alternative to count one.
The state, the prosecutors, they were going to crush this bitch. Example of you, bitches like you, and that's exactly the way they think. They were going to make an example of this bitch.
But the jury decided to spare her life.
They decided not to give her the death penalty.
On April 18, 2003, 49-year-old Linda Henning was back in the Bernalillo County Courthouse for sentencing. To ensure she served the maximum time, prosecutors added a gruesome new detail to their theory of how Dyson and Linda had disposed of Gurley Chu Hassenkoff's body.
I was set up by the prosecution as, hit woman, ninja assassin warrior, mind-controlled robot, mastermind criminal.
But at the prosecutor himself.
He alleges I'm a cannibal, an alien queen, and a ninja assassin warrior. Well, will he file a motion this week saying I'm the Easter Bunny? Where's the evidence? Where is the evidence? Well, if I was a cannibal, why don't you bring it up in the trial? Why don't you bring it up in the trial? Well, they don't bring it up because there's no evidence.
The judge sentenced Linda to a minimum of 73 years in prison. Even as she was being taken to begin what was essentially a life sentence, Linda continued to insist she was the victim of faulty forensics.
This issue is about a chain of custody. 220 items of evidence were taken.
And her faith in Diazin Hassenkauf.
I love the kindness about him. I love the compassion. I love his brilliance. I hope that Gurley Chu is found. I hope that a lot of this is really going to turn out to be a hoax.